Hello fellow readers and readeresses. This is the year in which I put order into things, which is why today I have 2 TBRs for 2 different reading challenges. I'm going through a bit of a cold, so if my voice is cracking sometimes, please excuse that. I'm also hoping I'm not the only one who hasn't removed her Christmas tree yet. Lazy. If you've read the title of this video, you already know that today we're going to be talking about 23 books to read in 2023 and 12 books recommended by 12 friends to read in 12 months. That was a lot of 12s. Starting with 20 books to read in 2023, this is going to be a list of random, mostly backlisted titles, some new ones that I want to absolutely read in 2023 because either I have been postponing them for a very long time, or I've been looking forward to reading them for a very long time, or another reason, but just books that are on the forefront of my intention to read in this year. And then 12 books by 12 friends in 12 months is, well, self-explanatory. I asked 12 of my closest people to recommend a book to me, some of their favorite books, to read in the year 2023. I have put all of those in my reading journal here. And while in my reading journal they're all together as a TBR of 2023, in this video I will split them into 2 sections. We're going to start with the 20 books in 2023 because those lists don't overlap. Without further ado, let's go into the 23 books I want to read in 2023. First, let's get the obvious things out of the way, and the only new books on this list actually newly published, and those are the 4 secret novels that are going to be published by Brandon Sanderson in the year 2023. The title of the first one was already publicly revealed, so I will say it here, Tress of the Emerald Sea, and then we have Secret Projects 2, 3, and 4 that are also on the list. In fact, I have already read Tress of the Emerald Sea, and I am planning on posting a book review one of these days, so whenever I do, I will link it over here. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, last year Brandon Sanderson announced that during the year 2020 and 2021 he has written 4 secret novels, and he created a Kickstarter to publish them in the year 2023, which he called the Year of Sanderson, which I quite like. And I backed this Kickstarter, and obviously I'm so looking forward to these books. Matter of fact, minus The Rhythm of War, these books are the only Cosmere books that I have not read yet. I believe only one of them is not related to the Cosmere, the other 3 are. But regardless, there was no way for me to not put these books on the list. Book number 5 on the list is going to be Valor by John Gwynne. This is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, the first one being Malice, which I read last year. This book was on my list of books that I wanted to read in 2022, but unfortunately wasn't able to because it was tied in a buddy read. Now it's definitely going to be read in 2023 because we started a buddy read of it in January with my friend, and so far I am having the best time reading it. No surprises here. The 6th book on the list is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, and it was also on my books to read in 2022 list. Probably a few more are going to be from that list. Actually, I wasn't able to read it in 2022 because, again, it was tied in a buddy read, and I am definitely reading it in this year. Actually, a goal of mine is to finish the Farseer trilogy this year, so hopefully I'll be able to read all of the books. I don't physically have it yet because it still hasn't arrived. I ordered it I don't know how long ago, but I am hoping to get it very soon and start it very soon. The first book in this series, Assassin's Apprentice, was one of my top books of last year, and I'm so looking forward to reading this one as well. Book number 7 is also from books I wanted to read in 2022 list, and that is The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. This is the 4th book in the Wheel of Time series, and I wanted to read it last year but obviously wasn't able to. It's a big chunker, and I am looking forward to reading this one. I have been having a love-hate relationship sort of with the Wheel of Time series, and I'm kind of hesitant to say that because I know it has a big fan base and I don't want to offend anybody, and people seem to be offended when you say bad things about the books they love, which I understand, but I don't have any malicious intentions. I'm just trying to be honest here. I loved books 1 and 2 from The Wheel of Time. I had a good time with them. I had some problems with them too, but I was hoping that those problems are gonna go away with time and the evolution of the characters, because my biggest problem was with the characters' portrayal mostly, some of them. And unfortunately, in The Dragon Reborn, those issues were not only not resolved, but kind of amplified. And I was a little bit disheartened, but I still want to love this series because I know it's a staple in the fantasy genre and I know it has a great fan base and I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of the hype. So I am giving it a try again with The Shadow Rising, and I'm hoping that my issues with this series are hopefully going to be resolved this time. I will try to do a review of this book and talk more in depth about my issues with The Dragon Reborn and the character work. So if you're interested in hearing more and maybe having a debate, stay tuned for this. Book number 8 is, I believe, the last one that was transferred from the 2022 TBR, and that is Full Moon by Jim Butcher. This is the second book in the Dresden Files series following the wizard detective Harry Dresden, which I love so much. I had such a great time reading the first book, Stormfront, but I read it all the way back in 2021, and because of a buddy read, I wasn't able to tackle this one last year, which is hilarious because it's such a small book and I'm so looking forward to it, and I don't know why we can never find time for it, but I am putting it on my to-do to find time for this book this year, no matter what. I really want to continue with the Dresden Files series and see how the world building and our main character are going to progress. I'm hearing that the series gets better and better the deeper you go into it, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Book number 9 on this list is gonna be no surprise to anybody who has watched 1 or 2 videos on my channel, and that is The Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive series, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is the only published Cosmere novel that I haven't yet read. And the funny thing about this book is that I purchased it as soon as it came out back in 2021 maybe, if I'm not mistaken, and I've been looking forward to reading it ever since, and I still haven't because of my hesitation to see how Brandon Sanderson is going to hurt the characters that I already love. So now I am doing a reread of the Stormlight Archive with a friend of mine just so that I can remember again all the things and relive them before I tackle this book. And I am vowing this time that as soon as I am done with the reread of The Oathbringer, I am going to jump into this one immediately. I already reread The Way of Kings, so I only have Words of Radiance and Oathbringer before I can tackle this one. So a lot to look forward to. Book number 10, I believe, on my list is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. This is an adult fantasy and is the first book in the Powder Mage series. Believe it or not, I've been wanting to read this series for several years at this point, and I've owned the book for at least a year now and still haven't read it for some reason or other. There's always something else, I'm guessing, but this year I'm definitely reading it. I already read the first chapter, I believe, of this book and loved it. It seemed very, very interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to it. A lot of friends of mine have also recommended this book, so my anticipation has been growing steadily, and this is the year in which I tackle it. Book number 11 on my list is one that I am so excited about, and that is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. This is the first book in Malazan Book of the Fallen series, Malazan. I know that it's supposed to be pronounced not how I usually pronounce it, but I am just so used to it. Anyway, not that important. This book I have owned ever since 2018. I purchased it without knowing anything about it, anything about the series, never heard of it for some reason, and I liked the cover and I liked the title, and I never read it, and now I have finally made the decision to tackle it. Now, the thing about Malazan Book of the Fallen series is that it's very deep and difficult, and it kind of throws you into the action without any explanation and is kind of complicated to get into, at least according to the fan base, and that has scared me away from reading it for a bit. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute, this is exactly what I usually like about books when they are super overcomplicated, so why not give it a try? I am sure I'm gonna love it. Very much looking forward to it. Also, starting Malazan is on my reading goals for 2023, which you can watch over here if you want to. Book number 12 on the list is one that everybody has heard of, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet, and that is The Gunslinger by Stephen King. This is the first book in the Dark Tower series and is a staple in the fantasy genre, and everybody who's read it either loves it or hates it, but if they hate it, it's because of the ending, which I don't know anything about. Otherwise, they say they love it. So my hopes for this series are quite high. This book is also very short. I think it's not even 300 pages. I have not read Stephen King ever since I was like 14 years old, and back then I read The Dead Zone by him and I quite liked it, but to be honest, I have grown into a wimp I would say. The older I get, the more scared I get from a lot of things. So I've been staying away from more horror books. However, this is a fantasy, and I know that Stephen King is a brilliant author, so I'm very much looking forward to reading it and hopefully getting more into reading Stephen King in general this year. Book number 13 is another classic and staple when it comes to fantasy and even sci-fi sometimes, and that is Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. This is the second book in the Death series, and I forgot which one in the Discworld series. I read Mort last year, which was the first book from the Discworld that I read. It's one of the recommended starting points, and they recommend to continue with Reaper Man, so this is what I'm gonna do this year. Next, we have another classic fantasy, and that is The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. This is the first book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series, as far as I remember. I don't know anything about this series besides the fact that everybody who I respect and have read it and I have talked to have said amazing things about this series. They say I should definitely go for it and that I'm gonna love it, and I know I'm gonna, so I'm so much looking forward to this. And book number 15, if I'm not mistaken on the list, is The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. This is another classic staple fantasy. It's the first in the Shannara trilogy, the original Shannara trilogy. It is described as very similar to The Lord of the Rings, and I have already read a few chapters from it a while ago when I was trying chapters, trying to see what I was feeling like reading. I know that it's great. I very much enjoyed what I read, and by the way, my mom read it after I told her about it, and she said that it's so nice and so fun. She read all 3 books within like a week, and I was so impressed because she's not generally into fantasy, but I guess this was something that just clicked with her, and I know I'm gonna love it, so I'm so excited. And that kind of concluded the fantasy books on this list, so we're going to continue with some sci-fi. And so book number 16 on the list, I believe, is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This is a classic sci-fi book that is a staple in the genre, and all I know about it was that it features a bunch of scientists going to a distant planet trying to work to save the future of the humanity or some such, and then some issues start arising out of that. People who I trust have said great things about this book, so I'm definitely giving it a try this year. Book number 17 is Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. This is the second book in the Expanse series. I read the first one, Leviathan Wakes, last year, and the review of that book was the first video on my YouTube channel. You can watch it over here if you want to. I very, very much enjoyed the first book, and I'm so looking forward to the second one, and I don't even know why I stayed away from reading it for such a long time. It's just so many great books and not enough time in this life. But anyway, this year I'm definitely tackling this one. And by the way, I just want to say this entire series has amazing titles for every single book. They sound so epic and just make me want to jump into them. Book number 18, I really hope I'm not messing up these numbers, is Starside by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Skyward series, and I read the first one, Skyward, several years ago, and I very much enjoyed it, and I don't know why I haven't read this one yet. I'm guessing it's just overload of good books around me. This is a YA sci-fi series that follows a young girl, Spencer, who lives on a very interesting planet where the humanity lives underground and is fighting aliens that constantly attack them, and they're doing it with fighter pilots, which are the most respected in that society, and she wants to become one. But the problem is that she's a daughter of a coward, which is very, very frowned upon. And so we follow her while she's trying to become a pilot and all the issues that she faces and all the friends that she's making, and we learn a lot about the aliens and the humanity and how everybody got where they are. So a great first book, and I'm really hoping that the second one is going to live up to it, and this year is the year that we find out whether that's true. Book number 19 on this list is going to be a classic. We're going to start the classics portion of this video, I'm guessing, and that is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is a very well-known children's classic. I have been told that it's best to read it in spring, so I'm waiting until spring comes, and I am tackling it this year. I have it in this lovely little edition. It's so beautiful. So yeah, very excited. Book number 20 is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I have 3 or 4 editions of this book in my house. Don't ask me why. I just do. I have never read Jane Eyre, but I have heard so many great things about it, and I've been wanting to read it, I don't know, for at least 20 years at this point. I don't know why I haven't. Now I have it. This is a second-hand edition that I found in a used bookstore here, and I am so happy about it, and I'm planning on definitely reading this one, probably around the autumn, because it seems to give off these vibes. Book number 21 is a big chunker, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. This is a very well-known classic about revenge, and I have heard fantastic things about it. I have not heard one person say bad things about this book, and I am so looking forward to reading it. The only thing that's stopping me was the fact that it is gigantic. It is over 1,000 pages of a classic, so it's gonna take a little bit to go through it, I'm guessing, but I am still very much looking forward to it, and I cannot forgive myself that I haven't yet read it in my life. Book number 22 is another book I can't believe I haven't read in my life, and that is 1984 by George Orwell. This is a dystopian classic about the surveillance state and control in general, and has been hailed as very relevant ever since I can remember being a human being, so I should have read it, and I wanted to read it, and I don't know why I haven't, but now, this year, I'm gonna do it. I have ordered it, it hasn't yet arrived, and that's why I don't have it as a physical copy. And book number 23 on my 23 books to read in 2023 is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I don't know anything about this book besides the fact that it's a fantasy and it's been recommended to me by a gajillion people already, and I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and now I ordered it like last week, I believe, and so I'm expecting it to arrive at some point during the next month, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. Enough people have said great things about it to convince me that this is the book for me. And that concludes the 23 books I want to read in 2023, and we're gonna go into the 12 books recommended by 12 friends to read in 12 months. The first book on that list has been recommended to me by my friend Yana, and that is Captains of the Sands by Jorge Amado. This is a historical fiction by a very popular Brazilian author, and I don't know anything about it besides the fact that my friend has said great things about it, and I am very much looking forward to reading it. And the same goes for the second book on that list, which was recommended to me by my friend Bettina, and that is Death with Interruptions by José Saramago. Again, I don't know anything about this book besides what she said about it, and that is that the plot follows Death, who has suddenly decided that nobody's gonna die anymore, and the societal implications of all of that. This sounds super interesting, and I'm gonna pick it up as soon as it gets here. The third book on this list comes recommended to me by a friend of mine who goes by the nickname Killjoy, and is very different from the first two books on this list, and that is A Lion's Tale, Around the World in Spandex, which is a memoir of Chris Jericho, which is a very famous WWE fighter. Chris Jericho was one of my favorites back when I was very young, and now I'm so excited to read a book about his experiences told in his words. So I'm gonna do so as soon as it gets here because, again, I had to order it from abroad. Book number 4 on this list comes recommended to me by my friend Bibi, who I have mentioned a few times on this channel and with whom I do all my buddy reads pretty much. And that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a standalone mystery with whodunit, with isolation trope, and is very popular, and so I have no idea how I managed to stay away from it for so long, but this is the year in which I pick it up. Book number 5 on this list comes recommended to me by my friend Boriana, whom I adore and who really decided to challenge me this time, and that is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I don't know anything about this book. I know it's very philosophically deep, and that is quite interesting to me, but it's not necessarily something that I would have picked it up on my own, so I am very happy that she did that. It's a bit of a chunker, but I am still looking forward to reading it. Book number 6 on this list comes recommended to me by my favorite person on this planet, and that is my mom, and the book is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. Let me tell you, so many people have tried to make me read Frederick Backman throughout the years, and I have always managed to avoid it, but this time I can't escape it. I have heard great things about this author, and I don't know why I have always tried to stay away from him. I'm guessing that is because he writes very deep emotional books, and I guess I am trying to avoid that in some way, but I am super excited about this one because I think I've stayed away from him long enough, and now is the time, and my mom's recommendation is gold for me. Book number 7 comes recommended to me by my friend Plamena and her husband, and that is The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. This is a sci-fi and the first book in the Remembrance of Earth's Past series, and fun fact, I already read it and gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed it so much. Highly recommend it. I'll probably post a review of it or talk more about it in one of my summaries, but I highly recommend it. Had a great time. Great recommendation. Book number 8 comes recommended to me by my friend Lazarina, and that is Manyunya by Narine Abgaryan. This is in Bulgarian, so that is why we have these weird characters. I don't know much about this book. I believe it's either historical fiction or a contemporary novel, and it's quite funny. My friend said that the book is great, and to quote her, if you ever feel down, just pick up this book and you will feel instantly better. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. Because let's be honest, we all feel down like every other day. Book number 9 comes recommended to me by my friend Danny, and that is East of the West by Miroslav Penkov. This is a Bulgarian author who lived in the US and wrote this collection of short stories while he was living there and missing Bulgaria. It is supposed to show the life in Bulgaria through the lens of a few different characters, and being myself a Bulgarian who has lived abroad for several years, I am really excited to read this. Book number 10 on the list comes recommended to me by my friend Monica, and that is The Immortals of Meluha by Amish Tripathi. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. This is the first book of the Shiva trilogy and is Indian inspired. This is the first Indian inspired book I'm gonna read in my life, and given that my friend Monica is Indian herself, I am super excited to give this one a try. Book number 11 on the list comes recommended to me by my friend Stella, and that is The Night in Lisbon by Eric Maria Remarque. I don't know anything about this book besides the fact that it's a historical fiction and a classic and is addressing a war, one of the wars, I don't know which one. I'm really happy that you recommended this one to me because this is something that I would never actually pick on my own, and this is giving me an opportunity to read something that is out of my comfort zone. And book number 12 on the list comes recommended to me by my friend Nadia and her husband Dilyan, and they recommended The Night Watch by Sergei Lukyanenko. This is a fantasy book, and all he said about it was that it's kind of like a Harry Potter for grown-ups with vampires, and that sounds absolutely amazing. So I immediately ordered it, and I can't wait for it to get here so that I can read it. I would like to thank every single one of my friends who took the time to answer this request and recommend me a book. I am super excited about every single one of those, and I feel like I'm gonna get closer to every single one of you by reading this book and sharing this experience with you. And that concludes this video. I would like to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I would be happy to hear what are the books that you're looking forward to reading in 2023. And if you'd like to see my most anticipated releases of this year, check out this video. Bye!